What, then, rescued modern society from collapse? Humankind was salvaged not by the law of supply and demand, but rather by the rise of a new revolutionary religion, humanism. Chapter 7. The Humanist Revolution.
If you were to ask me why Columbine happened, the biggest thing, it's not bullying, it's not the medication they were on, it wasn't bad parenting, it wasn't the school, it wasn't lack of gun control or any legislation. It was them. It was the two shooters and the choices that they were making.
On that day in 1999, Craig Scott's sister Rachel was the first person killed.
Hi, how are you? Good to see you.
Craig is seeing Amanda stare for the first time since evacuating the school 20 years ago.
It's not their fault. Hundreds of millions of people, literally a year across the world, listen to political speech. And you know what they do? They go out and vote. Or they argue with their friends about politics. They don't become savage maniacs and shoot up a Walmart.
But Dan,
clearly, guys, there's something else going on. There's something else wrong here. If you're sane and reasonable, you take away a conversation about what the real problem is. There's something going on in our culture. The number of guns is up dramatically. Gun crime and gun crime per capita is actually down dramatically. Right. People have had guns in the United States for hundreds of years since our founding. What is going on in the culture?
Ever since that mayhem 15 years ago, we've seen more and more of these mass shootings, many by troubled young men inspired by the Columbine killers.
All the suspects were inspired by or somehow tied to the Columbine tragedy, when Eric Harris and Dylan Klebold hunted down and killed 12 students and a teacher in cold blood.
And tonight, right here, the new clues revealed about the gunman. As we hear from a former girlfriend who said herself there were red flags, what he was fascinated with.
A few hours after that, 9 people were killed in Ohio. That happened in the early hours of Sunday morning. A 24-year-old, Connor Betts.
ABC News has also learned of a now deleted Twitter account believed to be linked to Betts, describing himself as an anime fan, a metalhead, and a leftist.
From a man who witnessed the chaos of Sunday's mass shooting in Dayton and came within feet of the gunman.
In fact, he says he looked right into the eyes of the shooter.
It was kind of just like unreal, like a horror movie or something like that. I mean, I could see his mask and I could see his rifle.
Dana says he got a glimpse into the suspect's eyes.
He had the mask on and it was like a square little opening, clear opening, and I saw his eyes and he looked angry. He did look like he was mad as hell.
In El Paso, Texas, a man entered a Walmart just after 10:30 on Saturday morning. A 21-year-old suspect is in custody after surrendering to police in the store's car park. 2019 is only about halfway through. 251 mass shootings in the United States so far this year. Monday, the 217th day of the year.
I think there's, a lot of denial about it. I think we all want to say, well, look at the good stories that come out. Look at what so-and-so has done. And isn't this wonderful? But I think we're still hurting from all of this. Because in the case of Columbine, we can call it an incident. We can say what a tragedy it was. But when it comes right down to it, it was murder. We had children murdering other children. And we have a tough time explaining that. How could that happen? Why would that happen?
I feel safe. I mean, it's still a low percentage chance of anything happening. But I mean, this is happening so much in the country, like every few weeks. We just had 2 in the same day. It's unbelievable. So.
Yet another tragic incident in the United States, this time happening in California. No guns this time, but a knife was involved. A man has gone on a violent stabbing spree.
Still wondering what drove him to these apparent random acts of violence. While in Pittsburgh, another stabbing. 2 women wounded, one of them.
Last night, the communities of Garden Grove and Santa Ana were preyed upon by violent individual who had no remorse or care for the safety of anyone other than himself.
The rampage hit 7 locations in about a 5-mile radius. Police call the attacks random and hate-filled.
The flags behind me are at half staff. That's for the needless violence that's happening across the United States.
The killing spree began when the 33-year-old suspect burglarized an apartment in his own complex Wednesday afternoon.
Inside here is where the 4th and final victim was killed. Random attacks that police describe as pure evil.
This copycat phenomenon is a very real thing. I mean, obviously, but we're in a real conundrum here, Stephen. What do? It's news. You obviously have to cover it on these networks. It's devastating news, but it's news nonetheless that people are entitled to hear the details about. But, we can't be ignorant here and pretend it's not a legitimate problem that some other people with severe psychological disturbances and problems beyond our capacity to explain in simple news appearances will find some sick inspiration in this. The copycat effect is very real.
You said there's a problem in our culture. What is the problem?
I was thinking about this all weekend. Is it, all I have is questions. I mean, I went to graduate school for psychology, but it didn't make me an expert that I have all the answers. Is it social media over social interaction? Is it this disconnect? Is it the breakdown of our family? Does it have something to do with entertainment choices? I think all of these things should be looked at. I think it's only fair. And what are we doing instead? Oh, Bernie did it. Elizabeth did it. Trump did it. No, you know who did it, Pete? The maniac who walked into a Walmart, snuffed out the lives of 20 innocent people shopping on a weekend whose families will never, ever see them again. Can we as a country, please God, and I'm not using his name in vain, I put my hands together, can we please just empathize with the victims and the families for a while and find out what happened?
Look, the story of the country is we get it right at the very last minute and just barely. At every point.
Why?
I was thinking this morning, because we're human beings and we live in a fallen and sinful and incomplete world.
Today, things are very different. For centuries, humanism has been convincing us that we are the ultimate source of meaning, and that our free will is therefore the highest authority of all. Instead of waiting for some external entity to tell us what's what, we can rely on our own feelings and desires. From infancy, we are bombarded with a barrage of humanist slogans counseling us. Listen to yourself. Follow your heart. Be true to yourself. Trust yourself. Do what feels good. Jean-Jacques Rousseau summed it all up in his novel Émile, the 18th century Bible of feeling. Rousseau held that when looking for the rules of conduct in life, he found them in the depths of my heart, traced by nature in characters which nothing can efface. I need only consult myself with regard to what I wish to do, What I feel to be good is good. What I feel to be bad is bad. Look inside. The antidote to a meaningless and lawless existence was provided by humanism, a revolutionary new creed that conquered the world during the last few centuries. The humanist religion worships humanity and expects humanity to play the part that God played in Christianity and Islam, and that the laws of nature played in Buddhism and Taoism. Whereas traditionally, the great cosmic plan gave meaning to the life of humans, humanism reverses the roles and expects the experiences of humans to give meaning to the great cosmos. According to humanism, humans must draw from within their inner experiences not only the meaning of their own lives, but also the meaning of the entire universe. This is the primary commandment humanism has given us: create meaning for a meaningless world. Accordingly, the central religious revolution of modernity was not losing faith in God. Rather, it was gaining faith in humanity. It took centuries of hard work. Thinkers wrote pamphlets, artists composed poems and symphonies, politicians struck deals, and together they convinced humanity that it can imbue the universe with meaning. As the source of meaning and authority was relocated from the sky to human feelings, the nature of the entire cosmos changed. The exterior universe, hitherto teeming with gods, muses, fairies, and ghouls, became empty space. The interior world, hitherto an insignificant enclave of crude passions, became deep and rich beyond measure. Angels and demons were transformed from real entities roaming the forests and deserts of the world into inner forces within our own psyche. Heaven and hell, too, ceased to be real places, somewhere above the clouds and below the volcanoes, and were instead interpreted as internal mental states. When Nietzsche declared that God is dead, this is what he meant. At least in the West, God has become an abstract idea that some accept and others reject, but it makes little difference either way. In the Middle Ages, without a God, I had no source of political, moral, and aesthetic authority. I could not tell what was right, good, or beautiful. Who could live like that? Today, in contrast, it is very easy not to believe in God, because I pay no price for my unbelief. I can be a complete atheist and still draw a very rich mix of political, moral, and aesthetical values from my inner experience. To grasp the depth and implications of the humanist revolution, consider how modern European culture differs from medieval European culture. People in London, Paris, or Toledo in 1300 did not believe that humans could determine by themselves what is good and what is evil, what is right and what is wrong, what is beautiful and what is ugly. Only God could create and define goodness, righteousness, and beauty. Although humans were viewed as enjoying unique abilities and opportunities, they were also seen as ignorant and corruptible beings. Without external supervision and guidance, humans could never understand the eternal truth, and would instead be drawn to fleeting sensual pleasures and worldly delusions. In addition, medieval thinkers pointed out that humans are mortal, and their opinions and feelings are as fickle as the wind. Today I love something with all my heart, tomorrow I am disgusted by it, and next week I am dead and buried. Hence, any meaning that depends on human opinion is necessarily fragile and ephemeral. Absolute truths, and the meaning of life and of the universe, must therefore be based on some eternal law emanating from a superhuman source. This view made God the supreme source not only of meaning, but also of authority. Meaning and authority always go hand in hand. Whoever determines the meaning of our actions, whether they are good or evil, right or wrong, beautiful or ugly, also gains the authority to tell us what to think and how to behave. God's role as the source of meaning and authority was not just a philosophical theory. It affected every facet of daily life. And our recent achievements are now pushing humankind to set itself even more daring goals. Having secured unprecedented levels of prosperity, health, and harmony, and given our past record and our current values, humanity's next targets are likely to be immortality, happiness, and divinity. Having reduced mortality from starvation, disease, and violence, we will now aim to overcome old age and even death itself. Having saved people from abject misery, we will now aim to make them positively happy. And having raised humanity above the beastly level of survival struggles, we will now aim to upgrade humans into gods and turn Homo sapiens into Homo Deus.